Rudolph, and I'm part of the Agri SA Enterprises team. I'm also an agricultural economist by trade. Can you believe it? They finally allowed women to exit the kinship and to partake in agriculture. Before I digress and we continue with the formal introductions, I would like to do some housekeeping first. The bathrooms are on my left, your right. In case of an emergency, there are 2 exits on your left and your right. Please make sure that your electronic devices are on flight mode throughout the duration of this event. But for the rebels, silent will suffice. Lunch will be served on the patio on the right. Welcome to the handover of the Farming for Tomorrow initiative in partnership with the AgriSeta. This is genuinely a remarkable occasion. I say this with humility. As always, we stand on the shoulders of agricultural giants, and it is impossible to articulate any achievement without being thankful for the foundation that has been laid by these agricultural players. I mention this with respect as we, Agri SA Enterprises, form part of Agri SA, who plays a significant role in creating opportunities for farmers who have laid the foundation that is vital to our success. This handover is merely one puzzle piece to building a bigger picture in finding the solution to unlocking the value of smallholder farmers. To kick off this event, I would like to introduce Christo van der Rede, the CEO of Agri SA.
Good morning and good morning to all of you. First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge the presence of Jaco Minnaar. Jaco is Agri SA's president. Also, Mr. Omri van Zyl, who is the CEO of Agri Enterprises. And then to Dr. Sharova, a warm welcome to you as the CEO of AgriSeta. We've also got representatives from various organized agricultural bodies, from the RPO, Corinne, also from the MPO, a colleague there at the back, also AgriGauteng, welcome to you, and then media. We've seen quite a number of media people here today. Also, very importantly, oh sorry, there's mics.
Yes.
Okay. So, sorry for this, let me start again. Mr. Jaco Minnaar, our President of Agri SA, Mr. Omri van Zyl, CEO of Agri SA Enterprises, Dr. Sharova from the AgriSeta, representatives of RPO, MPO and AgriGauteng, all the media, and then very specifically the staff of Agri SA and Agri SA Enterprises for all of the hard work that you've done. I think what we are here for today is really to celebrate what we as a collective try to achieve. Agri SA Enterprises, together with our commodity organizations, play a massive role in terms of the training of young farmers and also to address the many shortcomings that exist within the training space. But we will not be able to do this without the assistance of the AgriSeta. AgriSeta is a recipient of skills levies, and those skills levies come from our industry, especially our commercial agricultural industry. And that money is then channeled towards training. And training has become even more important, given the fact that there are so many changes happening within the agricultural space. Technology is ever changing, plant health, animal health, all of these things are forever changing. But more so, the whole space of marketing, space of financing, all of these things have a massive impact on the sustainability of many, many farmers. So continuous training is important, and then taking hands with entities like the AgriSeta and as well as government entities such as Department of Agriculture is now becoming of critical importance. And then also a warm welcome to Mr. Johan Stassen. He is also here today. And then Mr. William Barnes, all the way from Oppermansgronde. It's quite a distance that he has traveled, so a warm welcome to you, sir, as well. So colleagues, that in a nutshell is my welcome. Perhaps, Jaco, Is there anything that you would like to add as President? You fine? Jaco has also driven quite far, and thank you for all the sacrifices that you are making for our industry.
Thank you for the welcomings, Christu. It is now my honor to give the podium over to Dr. Innocent Sharova. He is the CEO of the AgriSeta.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Greetings go to Agri SA President, whom we were joking with a friend outside to say, perhaps you can have AgriSeta come and stay here for free. So Agri SA Executive Director, CEO, Christo, thank you so much, who is equally a board member at AgriSeta. Omri, the Agri SA Enterprise CEO. So ours is just, as AgriSeta on behalf of government, is just excitement. Excitement to find ourselves having supported this transformational program, wherein what we do training and skills development for all the farmers in the country. But in the main, our focus remains those who were disadvantaged in the past, our black farmers. So when Agri SA came to us with a proposal on the partnership that we can do to basically train 720 emerging black farmers, we had to come in with excitement. Training them for livestock, be it sheep, goat, and also the cattle. So we were excited to partner with Agri SA for an amount of around 15 million rands over a period of 3 years. So the training has been taking place. They reduced that based on how fast the program ran. Instead of doing it in 3 years, Agri SA managed to do it in 2 years, and for that, give them a round of applause. So we hardly get it in other organizations that we work in, where they're able to train such a number within the shortest period of time. So we are glad that after he is not just leaving them there after training, registering them to become cooperatives is one of the discussions that we have had with them. So that wherever they are able to apply for grants funding directly from us, and we continue to monitor together with Agri SA what they are doing after training. Because it doesn't end with training. Ours is to make sure that the economy, they are able to manage themselves there in the current challenges of unemployment rate that has gone beyond 35%. So we are excited. And if there are extra questions possible, we'll take them during the right time, but as well to appreciate the media for having taken time to come here. The program itself is quite exciting. With time, perhaps you would be able to meet some of the emerging black farmers that have been trained. You see how excited they are on the program. But it's not enough, Christo. I'm sure we can look forward for something better and bigger than this. So as government, we are really excited and continue to do the good work. President, highly appreciated. Thank you so much, colleagues.
Thank you so much, Dr. Innocent. We're going to give it to I3A, Johan Stassen, to just present the findings of this program.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Van der Reda, Dr. Shirava, Meneer Omri van Sail, and Sulaiman. It took me some time to pronounce Sulaiman. Thank you very much for this huge opportunity. It has taken almost a career of 40 years to grow into agricultural training to this level. So before I start, just a brief background who we are and how it ended up that the International Agricultural Academy for Africa, or I3A, was appointed by Agri SA. I landed as a young man after studies in Bloemfontein in a small town, Yugi. Now, Yugi Agricultural Cooperative appointed me in 1988 as an extension officer, as an economist, and whatever, jack of all trades. And it happened that I've met some Transkei farmers on quite a high level, and we established the Umga Farmers Training Group already in 1989. And I'm proud to say, Dr. Sirawa, we were the first AgriSeta accredited provider in the Eastern Cape. I can still remember the day when Fanny Petla and Dominicus came to visit us, and we were all very excited because before that we were under the Department of Labour doing some training. In 2015 we've grown to the exchange that our vision to make a change to farmers in Africa ended up in the registration of the I3A company, and ever since we've not looked back. We moved our head offices to Bloemfontein, and I'm very excited to be part of this project. Dr. Sirova, I can remember around about 2001, our first big project through AgriSeta and Department of Higher Education was a project by the name Iquelo, which means whistle, where we had to train 20 ABET centers in more or less a similar program and do research and present the results. So thank you very much. Up till now, we've added up close to 50,000 farmers that we've trained over 40 years. So it is a privilege for us to be part of this project. I'm going to look quickly in regard to the comprehensive mentorship program, the projects by provinces that we've implemented, the findings as part of the research that we've done, and then a few words on the way forward, because that is the most important. So the comprehensive mentorship approach was proposed by Agri SA Enterprises to the AgriSeta, based on, let's call it the 4 pillars, to say that there must be a technical training side identified in goats, beef and sheep, and as a pilot project to see how good we can achieve results, to then also enter the crop production or the horticultural enterprises. The next level was entrepreneurial development. In other words, teaching people to do business plans, how to access the markets. And very, very important, although it's a very small little something there, mindset building. I've learned from the beginning of my career that technical training is actually very easy. It's so easy to compile a little manual and to train a few people something, a few things, a few concepts that they maybe in any case didn't know. But it's also easy for them with technology today on social media and YouTube to gain that. But mindset is something that was always lacking. And I think we found a way with Agri SA Enterprises and with my colleague Hans with his project Garcias for Africa to make a difference in mindset. Then management development with regard to business management, financial management, record keeping, basic bookkeeping, and then finally leadership development. We see today the leaders of the agricultural structures in agriculture. And on the lowest level of a farmers association or a little sheep and wool project or a beef project, there must be leaders. And the leaders must understand what it is about to interact on higher levels with industry. At the end of the day, we restructured the pillars a little bit to say we will build the whole project on a foundation of mental wellness. Now, mental wellness may sound, if we get the expression that we are working with people who are not mentally well, that's definitely not what it is. It is more about the nature of thought. the fact that we are about 30 people here, and each one of you sitting here has got another reality on how you experience the way I am presenting. It's not the same. And what we're trying to teach farmers is that with that reality that we are all experience from day to day, from moment to moment, which creates feelings up and downs, and which create conflict or good things. If we understand where it comes from, the basis, then we can work together. Then we can stand our enemies. We can start negotiating with, if I say enemies, I mean those who differ from us in a community, and we can start tolerating one another to go forward for the case. Okay, then the technical training, the mentorship itself, data collection, and very important community engagement. One of the first things I've learned in my little career, I was appointed at a cooperative with a BSc economics degree from Free State University in a small community. It was like putting me on a throne like the dominee and the postmaster and the magistrate, saying, here's now an educated man in a small community. But when I get to farmers' meetings or to sport club meetings, I quickly realized I know nothing about the agricultural industry. I've never learned in my 5 years at university any commercial name, any reference to commercial commodity organizations, and I've got no knowledge on products. So I decided within myself for 6 months I will work behind the counter to learn products, to learn the role players, so that I can also advise farmers. Because how do you advise farmers if you don't even know about the BKBs and the MSDs outside there? So it was very important for us to put a roof of industry involvement over this project. Without the industry, agriculture cannot go forward. All right, the geographical areas that we focused on that was proposed is mostly the former Transkei, KwaZulu-Natal homeland areas, which is now the more disadvantaged areas, communal land, and then also in the northwest towards Mbatu areas in northwest. It was quite a challenge to get the farmers together, because we had to drive there, we had to have meetings, first interacting with them, getting into agreements with them, getting data arrangements, so that was quite a challenge. But at the end, we succeeded from the 720 farmers to reach 751 farmers. And I can promise you it was quite a challenging task. But I'm proud to say that we've exceeded the expectation in this program. Staying on the value propositions and the key partners that we had to bring in, the International Agricultural Academy for Africa as a AgriSeta provider, we joined forces in getting all the training and the program accredited and to be provided. On the market development side, BKB is by far the biggest wool broker and livestock agent in the country. And because of their big focus, especially on the Eastern Cape, former Transkei areas in the sheep and wool industry, BKB became our leading partner. MSD, Animal Health, it was also not that easy to convince MSD to become part of this project. Mohair, South Africa, and then the Real Farmers Trust on the boergoat was our industry partners who made it possible for us and also to help our farmers at this stage to get access to markets. On the technology part, the traceability side, quite an interesting development that came out. We hope we can take it further. We established the Sheep and Wool Academy for Southern Africa, or SWASA, together with BKB, also the Goat Academy for Southern Africa, together with Mohair SA and the Real Farmers Trust, and the Bovine Academy for Southern Africa, all affiliates of the International Agricultural Academy for Africa, being part of this whole play with Agri SA Enterprises. And then also important, a company in Johannesburg here by the name of Master Management, or Active, they trade as Active Intelligence. They assisted us to put together questions, questionnaires, electronic questionnaires, and that related to a database of the whole 756 farmers. And that was quite a extended research program from demographic informational, personal household information, income, home income, and I think the biggest challenge was that farmers out there, and I'm referring to small emerging farmers and also our rural farmers, don't keep any records. Nothing at all, not even on the back of the cigarette box on my totals, and this is a challenge that we have to address. On the project development side, taking technology now forward, we partnered a company by the name of Agripedia with Agri Enterprises. Now, Agripedia is also an affiliate of the International Agricultural Academy for Africa, which is basically our technology platform. Where we've got a huge extended database, information system of all enterprises. So we use it like a Wikipedia. And we're building this platform together with industry, because, as I said, without industry, this is not possible, so that farmers can really learn on a technology side. And we want to enroll this with Agri Enterprises, Agri SA in the near future. So that is the key partners in the value that we've unlocked. People, we haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg. There's still the whole industry outside there. There's still the whole of Agri SA with all their commodity organizations, with their industries that can become part of this and that can play a role to really rebuild South Africa. Not to leave out the AgriSeta with the enormous task that they've got to play. Okay, the forecasted impact, I've already touched it. We had to train 720 farmers. At the end of the day, we achieved 751. Sorry, I'm now going backward. Sorry about that. Okay, so let us look at the projects by province. On the sheep training projects, we divided them into 12 projects, average 20 farmers per project. It didn't play out completely, so here and there was a little bit more, a little bit less. But the focus area was, as you can see, on the Tabanshu area, also on the Swartwater area around Queenstown, and then also around Umtata in the former Transkei. The research results that we will discuss just now will show you the dynamics and the different dynamics that we find specifically in the former homelands areas, if I can call it that, and then also in the commonage areas, and then also some of the farmers who are on the land redistribution, renting from government. The cattle projects, of course, it is common knowledge we cannot produce cattle here in the dry Northern Cape, Western Cape part, so the focus was more towards the northeast, the Free State, northwest, and also Gauteng area. We trained 241 cattle farmers. And then the goat projects was a bit easier. I was surprised about the extent and the impact that the boer goat and the boer goat genetics and the boer goat association has already achieved within the goat production community. So the focus was in the Northern Cape, in the Free State, up in northwest Mafeking area, also in the western parts of the Eastern Cape, and then in the Western Cape themselves, where we succeeded in training 257 farmers. So I think the most important of all this was the research that we were able to do. I don't have the time to discuss all the research findings. We've compiled 34 individual reports on each community, which is available, giving the dynamics of each project. And at the end, also a combined report, which is available in front, which gives an overview of our findings. Let us just quickly look at age and gender distribution. I think the nice thing about it is the that young people are getting involved in agriculture. Around the sheep training, around 25 to 35 to 44 years of age was the highest level group people who attended. And it's also nice to see that females are getting involved, Shanae. So especially in the cattle and in the goat training side, the young women are getting interested in agriculture, and we will see why. Because agriculture offers at the end a financial solution to poor people, because they do have the resources available. They just need to know how to manage those resources. Yeah. Typically in the former Transkei, I think it's more because of the Xhosa culture. There were more male than female, but they are definitely more and more girls are getting involved in agriculture, and that helps us to change our focus point of training. Sources of income, as expected, people rely a lot on the social grants, the SASSA disability grants. Own businesses are growing slightly. State or private pension is playing a huge role. So if you add all that together, it still contributes quite an important part of income to our emerging farming community. But we can see that farming income is gradually growing. Specifically, what surprised us was the goat farmers. Their farming income, almost 45% of their total income. The sheep farmers a little bit lower, but still on the same level as SASSA and disability grants. So it is very, very important. And one can also see the impact that the National Wool Growers Association, BKB, with their livestock improvement scheme had since about 20 years ago, where they started to exchange good quality rams for bad rams. You can see the impact now, the good quality of wool coming out of those areas. It was part of the objectives to assist all the farmers to form legal entities. We moved away from the traditional cooperatives because it's a bit more difficult. The people don't understand the dynamics of cooperatives. So we registered private companies with CIPC. In total, 50 companies with 766 shareholders. So what's interesting is that the shareholders exceed the people who attended the training, because they do have an interest, and the demand out there is just bigger and bigger. Of course, it's a challenge for us to sustain and maintain those companies and to assist the farmers into really doing something with the company, making it work for them, understanding the dynamics of legal entities. Educational background, what made it for us a bit more easier was that more than 60% of our farmers had at least matric. About 4% had either diplomas or bachelor's degrees in agriculture, and grade 10 also, and a very small fraction, not even 30%, had less than grade 10. And they were more the elder part of the communities or the farmers. What would farmers like to be trained in? Of course, the big focus, because it was an animal production project, 30% indicated we need more knowledge on animal production and 21% on crop production. But if we look at leadership, business management, financial literacy, that makes up a bit more than the other 50%. And one of the findings that we've got is that the fact that farmers do not keep records, they don't keep farm records, we have to focus with our training more on that side. Okay, banking, funding information, interesting to see the role that Capitec is playing, especially in the communal areas, in the sheep farming. And on the question, do you have access to funding? 80% to 100% do not have access to funding. According to my understanding, I think it's more about the fact that there are no records. No records are being kept, and I think as industry we also have to talk to the right banks to assist us with technology regarding record-keeping systems. Land ownership, I don't have to say much about that because the big focus is still around communal tribal land. And in South Africa, we desperately have to start looking at giving people title deeds to move forward in commercial farming. Our economy is just stagnating in the agricultural side. Access to market information, frightening. Almost 70% of our emerging farmers has got no access to marketing information or any other information. We can see that the BKBs and the MSDs are playing a small role. But what I haven't got here is the fact that almost 80% of our farmers out there do use WhatsApp, they do play on Facebook. So these are technology platforms that we can use to get information out there. Access to markets, the big role that BKB is playing in the sheep and wool market, almost 70%. The other 26% is through private brokers who at the end also sell to BKB or OVK. On the mower side, BKB is playing a smaller role, about 40%. I think it's because it's a growing market and the quality of mower is still not on the level. So there's a lot of private brokers that buy in small quantities. I think it's also a matter of the levels of production, the quantities. Selling of livestock to markets, especially the sheep. Most of the sheep are being sold locally. Which means that money is just circulating within the same community. We need to look at the livestock development and from outside in industry so that money from outside can flow into the community so that the local economies can start growing. To round off with regard to how we see the way forward, we established 34 WhatsApp groups. People, and I'm regretting the day that I've put myself on 34 more WhatsApp groups because these things are singing. People are hungry for information and it's a powerful tool to educate and teach people and for people out there in the rural areas to communicate with us in the industry. Further training requirements, farming and financial record keeping, biosecurity, we definitely have to look at animal health and biosecurity. 90% of farmers out there do not dip and dose and vaccinate their animals, relating to almost 40% mortalities, especially in the sheep industry. The goats a little bit less because they are a little bit better educated. The main reason is not that people are uninformed about it, but the fact that they do not have money to buy medication or feed. So I can just imagine if a bank like Capitec can come forward and say, here's a 5 or a 10,000 rand loan per annum with which you can buy medication, the difference that can make. Farm planning and business management is also important. We have to focus on that specifically on record keeping, financial record keeping. There's no information out there. Mentorship and supporting structures. We have to look at the use of technology. Dr. Sirova, I think that the AgriSeta can play a huge role here in getting information out. I think we must start moving away from the conventional way of tenders yearly and giving a few guys money and they go and do a few skills trainings or a few learnerships. If that is not part of collecting data and measuring the impact, there's no use of training just for the sake of training. There must be outcomes and measurable outcomes. So we will have to look at building technology platforms to get the information out there in the vicinity of 100 to 200 million rand if we want to reach our farmers across South Africa. In extended industry supported skills training, we cannot go into the field anymore to train people if we do not train them about products of relevant industries that are in their vicinities, because our farmers do not know the products. They are not getting exposed to doses, dips, medication, when to use, dosing, dipping programs. They are not exposed to that. And that is the more direct technology training we have to provide. Extended industry supported skills, as I've said just now. We have to look at the correct application and utilization of their new legal entities, and that is a training function. We have to train them in that to understand. The industry will have to get more and more involved with their products, the properties of their products. And we also have to get them involved in the marketing side so that cash from outside the economy can flow into local economies. Production loans from on a very small scale, and then extended mentorships, more industry-related research. We have to look at a digital agricultural extension, maybe through social media, our Agripedia platform. And as I've said, we have to measure the impact of what we are doing. Otherwise, we're just training illiterate people. Dr. Sirova, Christo, Omri, Suli, this was a huge privilege to be part of this project. It also helped us to grow because we're never too old to learn. And I'm positive that we can take the next step and the next level and make a change in South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Johan. It's really remarkable to see the outcome that this project had. I would like to give over to Suleiman Patel. He's Head of Market Research and Development. Oh, sorry, I'm giving him my title. He is Head of Rural Development at Agri SA Enterprises, and he was also the project manager on this project. Thank you, Suleiman.
Thank you very much, Shanae. Thanks everyone for attending. Before I get started, I'm very junior here at the moment, so I'd just like to thank everyone for the opportunity to allow myself to grow. And I think this experience on the comprehensive mentorship project has been really a mindset change for myself. And it's given me experiences that I wouldn't dream of as a youngster. So I'd like to start off by thanking Yaku, the president of Agri SA. I know I can be a pain sometimes, but thank you for the opportunity, allowing me to mobilize and get the work done. Christo, as a mentor and support, Dr. Innocent, for enabling us to carry out such a great opportunity, and Omri for always providing assistance on my project. So thanks everyone for really providing the support needed. So today I'm going to move focus away slightly from the project and bring us to look at strategic opportunities that exist and how we take the findings from this project and develop it into better and greater opportunities. So starting off, I'd like to just give a bit of a background. As head of the Rural Development Division, my goal and my objective is to create innovative solutions for rural development. Like, just to stress on what Johan said, there's a lot of training that happens and there's no succession after the training. There's no sustainable, holistic approach to rural development with a specific context of agriculture. So what we as Agri SA Enterprises are trying to do is develop a system where we can graduate farmers from training, business management, connecting them to markets through our Agri SA network and partners. So our intention, and we're only touching the tip of the iceberg, our intention is to broaden our projects, reach out to more members within the Agri SA structures, and work with all of them. So why do we do what we do? As a youngster in agriculture, our country is really in a fragile state at the moment, and it concerns me because I love South Africa, we all do. And how do we as the youth in South Africa make a difference, make a change from the positions we have and from what the resources we have? And I think here, as Agri SA Enterprises, we're trying to look towards the future. How can we help South Africa to come to a compromise, whether it be for rural developing farmers, whether it be for more commercial farmers? We need to come together, join hands with industry and work together. I'm just going to run quickly through what are our strategic objectives and focuses in order to make all of this happen? Our key focus, currently the crisis is youth unemployment. And having that as a crisis is really bad because it brings along a lot of other problems, whether it be increase in crime rates and other problems. So our focus is creating jobs through sustainable farming practices, moving on, building agri-businesses through mentorship, like in the project that has just been completed. Our core focus was mentorship, sort of a hand-holding process, taking farmers that don't have access to softer skills and developing those softer skills while trying to root out potential within each individual. Developing agri-skills in agri-tech and value chains. I think one thing that's important and what we have noticed is not every person who has a flock of sheep is cut out to be the farmer. However, that person has different skills that can be adapted to different situations and give them access to different jobs within the agricultural value chain, whether it be in logistics, financial services, and agricultural technology. And that's why, and I'll introduce my colleague just now, Wesley Ferguson, has come up with some interesting developments in how we're going to empower youth within the agri-tech value chain. And finally, skills development and transformational agri projects. So, from our projects, our priorities are the following. Like I mentioned just now, tackling the youth unemployment problem in the country, giving females good representation in agriculture. We are currently running a female empowerment project in KZN with the Momentum Metropolitan Foundation, where we take 60 females and incubate them. And I have to mention again, the AgriSeta has helped us along there to get through the project with stipends and helping us with accreditation on that side. So the idea was we took the 60 females, we've taken them through a intensive technical and soft skill training course. We're now going through a phase where we helping each one develop comprehensive business plans, helping them with financial literacy interventions. And each one of those females are going to get an opportunity to pitch for funding to a panel of investors. And there's confirmed funding to fund those business plans, with mentorship after funding's been granted. Access to funding for emerging farmers. On a daily basis, myself and the rural development team approach corporate foundations, approach government organizations and other structures to access funding for developmental farmers. Often we get complaints from the farmers, no one wants to listen to us. We've asked the local government in our area, we had no response. When government does come to us, the inputs come late, we miss the planting seasons. So we thought it would be very appropriate for Agri SA and Agri SA enterprises to play as an intermediary between the funders, between the people who are trying to help, but might not have the correct interventions at the right time. So we're trying to coordinate, make a coordinated effort with partners to obviously bring the right interventions to the right people at the right time. Again, number 4, another priority on our project is mentorship and skills transfer. Often farmers and rural farmers, they're very good at what they do. They can grow you some of the best cabbage in the country, or the quality of the sheep we saw, some of the best quality in the country. However, they don't have the mentorship to transfer that knowledge they have about farming into a business. So the mentorship comes here, and it comes in very strong here. Access to formal markets, another thing we trying to collaborate, whether it's speaking to, we recently ran another project in Limpopo with Metropolitan, the insurance company. And we noticed that those farmers, there was one farmer there, he has about 60 hectares. And he's farming on 8 of those hectares with irrigation, and he's growing very nice produce. but he had difficulty getting his produce into a local supermarket. So that's where we came in. We made a connection with the local supermarket. We told them, here's the guy. We took him to the farm. We took the procurement guys from the supermarket to the farm. And today the farmer is now planting 20 hectares of pepper dew with full offtake agreement. So that's the type of interventions we're trying to get for the developmental farmers. And as Johan stressed, I'm not going to stress on this point much more, lack of financial literacy. I'd now like to introduce my colleague Wesley Ferguson to take us a few of the initiatives that we are planning and are developing in the Rural Development Division. So Wesley.
Thanks everyone. Wesley Ferguson, Head of the Corporate Finance Solutions Business Unit here at Agri Enterprises. I think on our side, one or two proposals we'd like to pitch towards the greater public and towards the AgriSeta themselves to see what can be done in terms of strategic skills transfer for the agricultural sector. So we'd like to start off with a concept called 4IR farmers, and essentially what this stands for is we're entering the fourth industrial revolution. It's time we equip our farmers and those within the agricultural sector with the necessary skills to keep up with technologies and to implement and create their own technologies from a problem identification phase at farm level. So the idea in short is that we take a handful of farmers through a staggered process, essentially equipping those in the agricultural sector with technology skills, getting those who understand maize and the likes, and letting them understand technology as well. Start off at a base layer where we have some basic programming, moving all the way up into hardware and software development, and the thinking and the rationale is to do gamified solutions to this, to get the youth interested in agriculture and to show them what the opportunities are that exist within the sector beyond just being a farmer themselves. We see technology as a potential input with lower barriers to entry than becoming a farmer himself. So the idea is to see how do we teach and train those in the agricultural skills sector with the necessary skills to adopt technologies and to embrace these types of technologies to the benefit of the industry. Then second strategic opportunity that exists, so as part of a consortium of sorts, Agri SA and Agri SA Enterprises have unlocked some additional work with some of our partners in the room, Mr. Sabelo Mbele from Aluwani Capital Partners and Teresa Leroux from FNB. In short, the opportunity exists to support an enterprise and supplier development initiative for Tiger Brands. On our side, Dr. Sharova, I think between the consortium, we're going to be supporting these farmers in terms of funding, and we'd like to extend an invitation towards the CETA and those partners in the room to see how they can contribute towards uplifting this program. It's important to give farmers the access to finance, like some of our partners have mentioned around the room, but also the finance needs to go to sources and those with the necessary skills on the ground to ensure that if you fund them, they have the necessary skills to produce what we're asking from them from the funding side. Yeah, so those are two of the opportunities that exist from our side. I'm going to pass over to Suli to speak you through some more. Thanks.
Thanks, Wes. Carrying on the same theme of Wesley's, just to take you through some of the other interventions that we have, and some of the interventions are in the initial stages as well, so there's a lot of room for synergies, a lot of room for cooperation in these spaces. So one of our very recent projects, still in its infancy, is the Agribusiness Incubator. Following on the Momentum project that I've mentioned just now with the 60 female farmers, we've been given an opportunity to work with 20 farmers across 5 provinces, where we take those, so the criteria changed a little bit in terms of the class of farmer. So the class of farmer now focuses on farmers that are already currently producing. They have a market, even if it be informal. and they're employing at least 2 to 3 people currently. So we take that level of farmer and we give them training interventions as usual, and now we have confirmed funding for that farmers already. With the sole objective of creating employment. One of the key criteria is creating employment of this project. So there is opportunity for collaboration there. To grow the initiative size, obviously there's always room for growth. There is room for growing the types of training, the level of training, the type of technology used on the training. There definitely is room for collaboration there. Now we come to the Women in Farming project. With the Momentum Metropolitan Foundation, we've achieved really great things on this project. I think one thing that stood out in this project was the mental wellness. The 60 young ladies that completed the training part of this particular project really gave us phenomenal input on what impact the mental wellness had, because when they went back to their businesses and started to farm again, they looked at it from a totally different perspective. We had some interviews with the participants' family members, and the families tell us that they came back as different people. Again, I'd like to thank Dr. Innocent for the stipends provided. Dr. Innocent, I think you'll be very happy to know that the students didn't use stipends for transport. They didn't use stipends for accommodation or food. At least 70% of the participants on this project teamed together. This is talking of group 2 participants, so they were broken up 30-30. 70% of them teamed together and rented a piece of land. They used the stipends for seedlings, they used the stipends to hire a tractor, and they used the stipends to get water to the land where the butternut seedlings will be ready within 2 weeks' time. So I think that's really a success story from our point of view. This is one of our more interesting projects, and this one focuses on regenerative agriculture. We've partnered with the WWF as well as Conservation South Africa, and the project is actually funded by Caring. Caring is the holding company for luxury goods brands like Gucci, Boucheron, and a few others. And they've created I'm just trying to get the name, a regenerative fund for nature. And part of this project is we protecting rangelands from overgrazing alien invasive species. And our role in this particular project is to train farmers on sustainable grazing practices and field management, as well as the RWS wool standards. And that comes to the end of my presentation. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for attending. It's really been a great pleasure from my side, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suli and Wesley. So I would like to give over to William Barnes. He will be sharing his testimony on what impact this project had on his life.
Good morning to everyone. Indeed, a privilege for me to be here today, and I thank you for the invitation from Agri SA and Agri Enterprises. Now, I'm a farmer from the southwestern Free State, and I happen to be a farmer myself, so I'm not just representing a community, I'm also a farmer. And we are really fortunate because, you know, people like us don't always get this exposure. And what I'm going to say here today is important because I'm carrying behind me a community of farmers who've been farmers for a very long time, but we have been neglected also for many, many years. Now, as I said, I'm William Barnes, born in Oppermansgronde in the southwestern Free State. I grew up on a small farm. My parents used to be farmers on about 300 hectares of extensive grazing land. So I grew up with sheep and goats and cattle around me. And I always wanted to be a farmer. That was my life dream back in the day when I was still a child. As you would remember, in the history of our country, it wasn't easy for us to pursue agriculture. You know, our people would normally become teachers and nurses and policemen, and that was perhaps what we became. But I chose to become a farmer. So I was one of the first 6 students in South Africa that completed a diploma in agriculture back in the 80s from my community. It happened to be the colored community of South Africa. So I was only one of 6 that managed to do that at the time. Institutions of higher learning was obviously still closed for us. We couldn't. So we used, for instance, just to share this experience with you, we used Elsenburg lectures, but we were sitting on the farm worker institution. So back in the day, it was Kromeria was an institution where farm workers were trained, and that's where we had to do our practicals and being trained in agriculture. I didn't stop there. I continued my training in agriculture, and I cut a long story short. I obtained a master's degree from the University of Stellenbosch around 2000, the year 2000. Now, I'm saying this to say that I have been around in agricultural circles, agricultural environment. I experienced agriculture at this level where you meet with professional people. But I've also been on the ground as a farmer and with communities. The agriculture environment is still not a very friendly environment. That's unfortunately the reality. So it's not easy to really make it out there commercially, on a commercial level. And I want to put this on the cards today to say that I think we really need everyone's hearts in this. If we want to change this country, we need to commit ourselves to change and transformation in agricultural space. Chasing statistics and all those things it's not going to take us there. I came to realization that government is not going to do it. Government don't have the means to do it. Government can be an enabler, playing a facilitating role. But the real people who's going to change farming in South Africa are the farmers, the people who are involved in agriculture. Those are the people. And I think Agri SA represent basically that body, if I can say that, if I can call it that. And I'm saying this just because I'm an honest person and a frank person, but I will tell you that the agribusiness sector is highly untransformed in this country. They are not really serious about transformation. So we need to, you cannot transform people if you're not transformed yourself. And I think it's important that we look at what's happening out there on the ground and see, because the agribusiness sector can play a major role in transforming our rural communities. They do have the means, they do have the experience, they do have the know-how, they do have the markets, they do have even a funding for that matter. As a farmer specifically, and I will talk now more around my community, but as a farmer, my biggest challenge is access to markets. There's still a lot of discrimination in the marketplace. I struggle to sell my produce. You don't get the best deals. You don't get the offtake agreements that you are looking for. It's either we don't have capacity to take your product or this or that, but there's always something that hinders us from really getting into the mainstream. We always treat it like being on a side. And unless we begin to get honest about these things, we're not going to fix it. The time is running out for us in this country because we are in this together. And that's the important message from me to you today, is that in fact, I'm talking about my area, the farming community is actually quite affluent at the moment. They're not doing badly, you know, with the high commodity prices and so on. And on their doorstep, we have serious poverty. So we have this island of rich, wealthy farmers surrounded by very poor, unemployed communities. So in itself, it's a ticking time bomb. And we keep on complaining about crime and all these things. But we are not serious about uplifting people and getting involved. I'm not impressed with people who are doing window dressing, just for the sake of window dressing to see that we are doing something. But when you meet a black farmer at your door, you can't even talk to him properly. And this is where we live in two different worlds. And I'm saying this because the president of Agri SA is here as well. And I'm sure, I mean, he will have his opinion about this. But it's important that we begin to respect each other as human beings, and that we reach out to each other and take hands. We must stop operating in our silos based on color and all those things, because it's not helping us. It's not going to help our children. We need to get serious about this. There are good people. There are people out there who really want to bring change. But the problem is there are still many out there who have no interest in change. They see you as a threat. They see you as somebody, if I open up, I'm going to expose myself and so on. And my view is that if we could change the local institutions at the grassroots level, the cooperatives, the input suppliers, the markets, if we can start by transforming those institutions to the extent where they really take interest in all farmers, it will take us forward. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit more on Oppermans. Now, the Opperman community farms for more than 100 years. In fact, they obtained that land in the 18th century. And the founder of Opperman actually is probably my great-great-great-grandfather. He actually graduated from slave status in the 18th century, become one of the biggest landowners in the Free State at the time. So he obtained or acquired 34,000 hectares of land in the southwestern Free State. And mainly through bartering, he worked for the Griqua people at the time and all that, and I'm sure you know that history. It was very difficult history in our past and so on. But he obtained land through bartering and acquired land and so on. So by the end of the 18th century, beginning of the 19th century, Opperman's gronde was 34,000 hectares. And still today, it's around basically still the same. So what happened is it never grew. People became more and more and more, because I'm probably the fifth generation or fourth generation later, but the land is still the same. The Opperman people never got assistance in the sense of expanding their land firstly, or they can acquire more land. In fact, the title deed of the land, which was acquired by them as private land, was taken away from them because of apartheid legislation at the time. And it was then, placed in government hands, in a trust. So they had no collateral, they had no security, they couldn't go to banks, and so on. And my connection with what you and them are doing is that through all those years, there were never agricultural extension service in those communities. They were never exposed to agricultural training. Unlike our commercial farmers who had access to an extension officer, access to people who could come and teach them, the input suppliers would come and visit his farm and tell them, there's this product, if you use this, it can help your sheep and this and that. We never had those things. So maybe if you're lucky, you'll pick up something along the way. Maybe as an individual, I might have something, but the next neighbor won't know that. So that kept our people back for a very long time. Access to basic information, technical information, on how to be better farmers. I believe that our people were good farmers back in the day. They were actually big farmers. In Opperman's gronde, people used to farm with 1,000 herd of sheep, easily. There were many of them. Today, they're an impoverished community with nothing. The average land size now to our farmers is 260 hectares. Now, we sit in an extensive grazing area with a carrying capacity of 13 hectares per large stock unit. So you can understand that many animals you can carry on 260 hectares extensively. Extensive grazing. But that's our reality. Unfortunately, the government never really took much interest in Opperman, so we never got any land additional being bought through any of the land reform programs. So we're still sitting on the same land. And yes, our community is going backwards, high unemployment, a lot of socioeconomic ills. There's zero investment in the land, in the area. What I must say, the Oranje Riet Canal passes through our community. And we managed to get access to land post-1994, 200 hectares of irrigation, water was allocated to the community. Initially, it was actually supposed to be 800 hectares. I happened to be in government at the time, so I know. But for some reason, the water boards and those scale it down to 200, and they allocated the water back to other farmers. So unfortunately, as we stand at the moment, that very 200 hectares that was supposed to improve people's lives and bring a change to that community is now leased back to a commercial farmer. So they don't have access to it. And the reason for that simply is because there's no support structure for that community. There's no access to finance. There's no access to mechanization. You know, they just left to operate on their own. So, so that also didn't work. But I'm not negative. I'm not hopeless. I'm coming here to say I appreciate you giving us this platform, because I want to bring this to your attention, because I believe, like I'm saying, government alone is not going to do it. Agri SA, together with Free State Agriculture and whoever else can, I believe, can play a role. Our agri-businesses who are affiliated to your body, I believe if they really want to, they can really contribute. And I mean, at the end of the day, if we can build a better rural development, we're all going to be better off. The economy is going to do better. So it's not wasted to invest in people who has been disenfranchised and disempowered before. It's for our own good and a collective good. Now, I just want to quickly say this, that we fell under Act 9, I think of somewhere 1987, the Colored Rural Areas Act, and I know Mr. Reda knows this history very well. We're one of the 24 in the country, in South Africa. And then democracy came in 1994, and Act 9 areas were moved to Tranca, Transition of Rural Areas Act. You know that piece of legislation, with the hope of developing these areas. And then, I don't know, government probably didn't really know what to do, and then the next thing, they moved us under the CPAs. Now, the Opperman people were never removed from the land. Yes, title deed was taken away from us, but we were never out of our land. It was never taken away from us. So I still wonder whether we really needed a CPA. Because all we needed was investment, an opportunity to govern ourselves, or the farmers to govern themselves and to develop their farms, but to become part of the broader community. We don't want to be treated like outsiders. We want to be part of the area where we live. We want South Africa. So I'm asking, in your approach, don't treat us like we are unique. We are part of everybody else. And yes, among us as black farmers, we all differ. We're not all the same. You can't put us all under one hood and say, okay, they all are, illiterate, they all resource poor, they all this, they all that. As individuals, we would like to have access to markets as individual farmers. We'd like to have access to the institutions that is in existence at the moment. And some of us can move faster than others. That's the reality. But okay, so maybe coming to the end of what I want to say is that the CPA, as it stands at the moment, is very problematic to us. It has actually divided the community in two, where if you on one side you have people who are part of the CPA and you have others whose membership has been terminated for some reason and then are outside of the CPA. So we've been fighting that battle for a long time with the government and say, please relook into this. And I know there's an amendment bill now to the CPA Act, which will to some extent address the interests of communities. Because CPA's management they were just running roughshod over communities and so on. And it didn't work. So it was really creating a platform for the elite to exploit, those who are less privileged. But we are still fighting that battle, and I must say I do have close contact with Free State Agriculture. We also, I'm the chairperson of the Oppermans Farm Association, and we are affiliated to Free State Agriculture. And yes, they've been helpful to us in that regard as well. Coming to the training that we offered from I3A, we experienced as very helpful. It has exposed our people to that best practice that we all talk about. How do I farm better? How do I, with the current resource at my disposal, how do I do it better? How do I arrive at a better product? And a lot of our people has taken a lot of lessons from you. And what we like and enjoyed about I3 is that they're very practical. I think it's people who have been exposed to farming for many years themselves, so they boerentaal gepraat, they could connect with the farmers. So, but now the challenge is, yes, the training has been offered, now what? So that's where we are stuck. And I liked what I heard Suli was saying, is that seeing the bigger picture. For us, it's just one component of arriving at that bigger, better life that we hope for. So, and I must say, and the Oppermans will take me on if I don't say this, we are very proud people. We are not people that want handouts. We've never, Opperman people have survived for more than 100 years on that small farms where they are, without handouts, without any help from government. Yes, things have gone backwards, but we need help. We want strategic partners. We want people who want to walk the road with us, not come and give a handout and disappear. So if we could arrive at a point where we could, where one look at the area and see what the potential of the area, what interventions, and really this is not just government, this is private sector, you know, the business sector and all, coming in and say, what is it can happen in this area? And that we really start, you know, employing those inputs. So we hope to see more involvement in Oppermansgronde. Some of our people are growing old without having experienced a better life, but there are also many young people who still hope for a better life. Important to us that we also need to look at acquiring more land, giving the people access to more land. Because access stands now as a poverty trap. You cannot farm sustainable or economically viable on 260 hectares of natural grazing in such a lower rainfall area. We need to look at developing the irrigation. You know, we need to look at what can we do to add value to our own commodities. You know, downstream value adding. We need to look at a cooperative model that we can plug our people in and bring them together, so we have economy of scale and so on. And this is nothing new. People know these things. It's been happening in the commercial farming sector. It's just that they're hands off when it comes to us. So I hope that through your facilitation, we can see some intervention, some investment in that community for the better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, William, for your impactful testimony. Next, I will be giving it over to the CEO of Agri SA Enterprises, Omri van Sail, to do the questions and answers, as well as do the closing remarks.
Thank you, Shanae. Hello, everybody. Nice to see all of you. Hi. So, having heard what everybody said, there's something that struck me. This morning when I spent some time in the traffic with the traffic lights not working, you know, you spend on average an hour more in traffic, which is obviously a pain in the backside. You know, there's so little good news stories in this country, right? So we've got load shedding, we've got wars overseas, we've got many challenges. They're stealing the country blind. You know, there's all this corruption, and I think everybody looks at the Springboks and they say, listen, hopefully they'll win the next game and we'll feel better for half an hour, and then, you know, we'll go back to load shedding if we can watch the game. So, Dr. Innocent, it's such a privilege to work with you and AgriSeta on these type of interventions. Dr. Innocent is he jogs, so he did kind of attempted to do the comrades, I think, but he's really brought, you know, breath of fresh air in the agriculture industry. You know, having heard him speak at a couple of functions, he's a visionary leader at the AgriSeta, and you know, that's something that I think is extremely important. Getting back to Agri SA and Christo and Yaku, they are both visionary leaders as well. You know, Agri SA is such a wonderful platform and network for cooperation, improvement. You know, getting stuff to a next level that actually matters. You know what's interesting, William? I also spent some time with Christo at Goed Verwacht. I know he's WhatsApping someone now, but at Goed Verwacht, and it's almost a similar type of, you know, situation and story there. Then there is in Oppermansgronde. So when I went to Oppermansgronde, flew to Kimberley. I actually grew up near Kimberley. So the first thing, they tell you there is that, you only speak English in self-defense, and that's true if you're from the Northern Cape. The other day, I had to speak to a group of farmers there near Warrington, and I had to explain to him what a vegan is. And after I explained, they said, no, there cannot be such a person. I said, there are many of those persons. But be that as it may, this is a good news plan, and this is a pilot, guys. This is a pilot. When our agri-economics team, our agri-intelligence team, Shanae and Craig and Jade, worked on some of the numbers, it's extremely fascinating to look at the bigger picture. So what does the big picture look like today? So we've got about 15 million cattle, give or take, 24 million sheep, and 6 million goats. And it's actually fascinating to see how well the goats are doing, because on all the stats and metrics here on, they're actually doing quite a bit better than the rest. But okay, let's say there's 45 million animals. This is now excluding, pigs and everything else. Let's say there's 45 million. The average household income of a small farmer or a micro farmer is 3,000 rands a month. Okay, that's where they are. So what we have done with this initiative with AgriSeta is we've actually lifted the knowledge economy in those areas and communities where we've worked. Now, education is always a good idea, and it's always an empowering thing because it exposes people to things that they have not been exposed to before. So let's say approximately 50% of the animals that we've looked at is owned by micro farmers. So that's about 22 million animals. That yields a turnover of 3,000,000 rands, 3,000 rands a month. So by doing the things that we are doing and being part of agriculture, the family is of such that we can make a massive economic impact on this country. Massive. So we've started with one pilot, and we've identified the agri-intelligence needed, the human intelligence needed to actually make a massive difference. Now, mental wellness, I might have given it a different name, maybe psychometric evaluation or whatever, because if I hear mental wellness, I don't know, my wife doesn't think I'm mentally well, but anyway, that's what happened. The impact that we will make by lifting 3,000 rands a month to 6,000 rands a month for 2 million emerging farmers is massive. It's a massive impact. And I guess why we created Agri Enterprises in the beginning is to actually implement stuff, to get stuff done, And this is a very good example of where we've actually tackled a very difficult problem, the rural development problem in South Africa. And we cannot do it on our own. I mean, it's impossible. But through these partnerships, we've shown that we can actually make massive, inroads into a economic opportunity of immense proportions. I mean, you just look at the banking sector, you just look at the insurance sector. Teresa's also there from FNB. We also work with them on the developmental side. If you just look at that commercial opportunity, it is massive and it's untapped. So I think one of the very important things that we will probably address in the next session with the press is what do we do now? So we've showed you a little bit about what we do in the space. We mix international best practices, local best practices, technology, everything we can into this concept that we want to pilot and repeat over and over in different commodity segments and really make it work and make it sustainable. So we have 52 companies that we've created, which is a much easier form of management than a CPA, for example. CPAs, guys, pull each other's hair after the first meeting. It's just how it works. And there's hundreds of them around the country. So the question, what William's testimony actually made me think about it. we need to move on empowering rural people and move quickly. I mean, the times for talking is over. You know, it's like ESCOM. If that light goes out, you cannot revive the country. So our mission is to actually tackle that, and we have started with partners like Dr. Innocent and Yaku and Christy, and take that concept, multiply, take it forward, because Willem, at some point people will have to realize how important the rural communities are, and you know what a big impact it will make on stuff like people moving to the cities, road transportation, etc. So last word from my side, I think the agriculture value chains is where it starts and ends. And you explained your challenges there. But if we can fire up the agricultural value chains to unlock economic value for the country, everybody will benefit. Then we don't have to go and watch the rugby every Saturday and hope for the best. Then we at least have our faith and our future in our own hands. So without any further ado, Shanae, that was the end of the speeches. So we can now, for those of you who want to stay for the press conference, you can stay. Probably some interesting questions that we're gonna manage. Is there something else you want to say before I continue? Oh, I can continue. Oh, then you'll close. Okay. Okay. So, let's start the press conference now. From the media, thanks a lot for coming, everybody. We really appreciate it. We appreciate that you're here. And thank you for the support for this initiative. Okay, let's start with questions from the media. And now I normally say, okay, not everybody at the same time. It's a joke. Yes, there's a question.
Would like to ask, this is such an exciting development for agriculture in the country. So what is the significance of this moment for South African agriculture?
Okay, Christy, do you want to get that one? Oh, sorry guys, there is a press release. Did everybody get one? It's in your little file.
One needs to look into the future, because it's all about food security. It's about ensuring that people have access to affordable food. People also have access to available food, and people have access to quality food. If you look at the Global Food Security Index, the results that were released, we are doing quite well in terms of, one, quality of food. Secondly, we do quite well in terms of food availability. What is more and more becoming an issue is the affordability of food. And there's a number of reasons for food becoming more expensive, given the global conflict, the pandemic, rising input costs, also a whole range of logistic factors. All of these things have a major impact on food affordability. And I think what we also need to ensure is that we need to have expertise available. We need to empower our farmers so that they can produce the food. I always say it's not land that produces food, it's expertise. And training is about establishing expertise, ensuring that people that produce food, that they have a proper understanding of how to go about So the significance lies in exactly that, ensuring food security, but also to build the capacity of people so that they, at the end of the day, can produce the food.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Maybe if you ask a question, just tell us who you are so that we have an idea. Okay, I see there's some influx of other people. Just getting to sit down. Welcome, everybody. Nice to see all of you. Okay, there's a question.
Hi, I'm Luca from the Daily Maverick. I'd just like to know, is the training program I actually have a couple of questions, perhaps they all tie in. But is the training program equipping the farmers with climate crisis training and awareness, if I can say? And under that umbrella, are they being equipped with knowledge around water solutions in light of water shortages and increasing droughts as a result of the climate crisis? And under that, are they being taught how to adapt and perhaps grow different crops that will survive under our current climate?
Thank you very much. I'm going to take 3 questions and then we can just dive over. What did you say your name is? On King Luka. Okay, another one. Okay, some more questions. Look, if you have a question, please spit it out. It could also be Nico, do you?
Nico from Beerpad. I just want to ask, currently on a figure that Dr. Sarova has mentioned, was it 15 million or 50?
Okay. 15 or 50. All right, some more questions? Anybody else? Yes.
Just another one.
Thanks for sitting that way.
It's a pleasure. Are indigenous knowledge farming systems being incorporated into the program, and are they being kind of spearheaded, and also is that knowledge being archived in a way so that that's also available for future generations and future farmers?
Okay, I also have a question to Suli, so I'll ask the question when I get there. All right, let's cover the first one that Onbeing Luka asked about, the training and development you're on. And Suli, does it cover the climate crisis, water solutions, droughts, and alternative farming solutions for these farmers within a kind of climate change context?
I think what's important in this pilot project was to understand that we had a certain time span with certain outcomes to reach. So our focus was on average 25 days, 5 weeks per farming project or farming community. And one of the lessons we've learned is that you cannot put too much technology in too short period of time, because it just goes in the one ear, go out the other ear. So there was a big play of awareness of sustainability, sustainability of all aspects of resources, human resources, livestock resources, natural resources, and making people aware of that. In which we found there's actually very little awareness, and if there is awareness, I think the realities in which people live to make a living every day and to eat every day, that importance override the bigger picture. They live in the now. They need to put food on the table today. Although they are very much aware, there's not much they can do about it. If that answers the question.
Yeah, I also think that, you know, part of what William testified to is the importance of water, the irrigation scheme that they have there. Generally, small farmers are more exposed to climate change than any other farmer, because they don't necessarily have the funds and the inputs to cover themselves on that in that respect. And what we've done with this pilot project is we've gathered a lot of data around, I mean, they showed you some of the data around the banking systems, the banks, and climate change and climate change adaptation actually is one of the things that we'll be looking at going forward. Yeah, so I hope that answers that question. Suli, do you want to?
Yeah, I'd like to add a bit to that. So every aspect of training can't always be capsuled in one initiative. Although we try to do as much as possible, we still try to lay the foundation first for the farmers. We do have specific initiatives that are focused in that particular direction when it comes to climate change, farming sustainably, farming with regenerative methods. Those particular projects have different outcomes and different focuses, and often those projects are brought to the same communities as well, because we have an extensive database of the farmers. So not specifically part of this initiative, but part of an initiative that we are running that's not directly related to this project. We definitely do cover those topics that you mentioned.
Okay, do you want to get the indigenous knowledge question as well?
Yeah, and I'll let Johan go part with me. So, as part of our training, we start off with a section called the current realities. That doesn't only focus on indigenous knowledge of farming, but it focused on each specific community history and indigenous knowledge within agriculture within that specific community. So if we take Oppermans, for example, we break down the history a little bit in terms of agriculture, in terms of the methods, procedures that were used in that particular community and how they've adapted over time as well. We also, something interesting and maybe a bit off point, is we give a bit of a cultural aspect to it, just for the for the farmer to understand the current realities of what they face, what the larger agricultural sector faces, and what their community specifically faces. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Innocent, Nico's question about the 50 million, and maybe just the subsequent question. Yeah, just a little bit more about it, and then maybe just the subsequent question is obviously there's a massive need for funding in the rural kind of areas. What initiatives does the CETA have with perhaps government departments that would create some light at the end of the tunnel?
Thank you very much. I'm disappointed that it's 50. I would have loved to say 50 because the impact would be much greater, but we are looking forward perhaps to quite a number of initiatives like this. It's just one part that we do, the way we have partnered with Agri SA. There are quite a number of things that AgriSeta is doing, particularly for the rural communities, which perhaps do not reach your level to cover it. You would be touched by the number of stories that are coming out where we are contributing. And for that, I would say, when all is done here and the dust has settled, I will still be available myself to engage with each media house that wants to talk to us as AgriSeta, or have my direct line. I have a CFO here. So to certify that when I speak of 50, it's correct. She is at the back there, CFO. If you can wave so that they see there. We also have the executive manager, Mirupisha Bango, who heads the program itself and runs with it. Amongst others, you find us having partnered with Department of Public Works for the development of artisans in rural communities. And it's a huge project that is taking place in the country. And besides that, we have all the kids who don't afford want to do agriculture in public agricultural colleges, TVET colleges, some at the universities. We provide bursaries. We have budgeted around 49.6 million over a period of 3 years, where they don't have to pay anything for as long as those colleges can be able to take them if they meet minimum requirements. It's quite a number of projects that we do as AgriSeta. It's only for the purposes of this session that we are sticking to the script of speaking about the 15 million that we are supporting. But outside the script, we can engage immediately when we are done. You would really love what ordinary people are benefiting from the CETA in this economic cluster.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Nielsen. Just the media, I think the CETA does an enormous amount of work. So it would be great if you can interview him and his team afterwards so that we can get the word out there. because I think, you know, it's worth talking and writing about. Okay, Christian?
Yeah. What is important, Omri, is that we shouldn't see this in isolation. Remember, the industry has signed off what we would call the Agricultural Agro-Processing Master Plan. And this plan is an important plan to address many of the issues that William has raised earlier. First and foremost, you know, the focus in the plan is on land ownership. How do we address, for example, the 10 million hectares of land that sits under the custodianship of Department of Agriculture. A small amount of that land has actually been transferred to ownership, and I think roughly approximately 1.3 million has been made available for long-term leases. And that in itself presents also a challenge, because it's no use you lease the land for 30 to 40 years, but the necessary support systems are not there. A second very important issue in the master plan relates to blended financing. Now, blended financing has been worked on. There was a lot of work that has gone into it, but I think what we need to do now is to say, how do we roll that out? How do we get the banks, land bank, other players into that space so that we have a more consolidated approach when it comes to financing of agriculture. Third issue relates to markets, local markets, global markets, expanding those markets so that more farmers can get their goods into those markets. Then training is of critical importance. The role that universities, agricultural colleges, agricultural schools, the AgriSeta and other SETAs can play in that regard. And then obviously extension services, ongoing support to those farmers. I've talked, and then farm worker development, and obviously compliance with legislation to ensure that we uphold the highest levels of ethics within the industry. And then last but not least, obviously there's a whole lot of other things, but the thing that is of critical importance is infrastructure. In other words, roads. Farmers need to get their produce to the markets. Farm workers have to come from towns to farms, but also there's an interlinkage between farms and agri-tourism. So roads play a critical role. Secondly, our rail system, our port system, all of these things must be optimized. Then I see part of the master plan is how do we deal with dams, raising dam walls so that more and more land becomes available for irrigation purposes, for example. So there's a lot of very, very good outcomes that that have been outlined, and action points that are contained within the agricultural agro-processing master plan. And the sooner we can get going so that that plan can be implemented, the greater the benefit that can come out of that, especially for oppermansgronde, for your farmers in communal areas, etc. So we've been notified by government that within the next couple of weeks, the industry will come together again to say, like, how do we now put a project plan in place so that that plan be rolled out. I think that is of critical importance. Often, we talk about transforming the sector, but you cannot transform the sector if you don't have a very clear plan. But first and foremost, that plan's foundation should be based on growing the sector. For the sector, because for us to build a more inclusive sector, you need to make that sector grow so that more and more people can benefit from it. But ultimately, it's about food security as well as further investment so that we can compete with the rest of the world in terms of food production.
Yeah, thanks, Christy. So Agri SA has done an enormous job to put together that agriculture master plan. This project is a little sample or a pilot of something that we can achieve with the partnerships like yourselves. Suleiman, so how do we implement these things? What is your view?
So I think, To answer a question like that, we have to schedule a 3-day workshop. Just kidding. I think it's...
No, let me be more specific. So we've done the training now. Eh? So you can have any wish you can. What would you want? What would you need to take these 752 farmers to the next level?
So I think to start off, I'd like to do an open call to industry. Whether you're related to agriculture or whether you're a stepbrother to agriculture. Come with your CSI foundations, approach us. The only way to stimulate this economy, the only way to create jobs within the sector is for investment in the sector. Currently, a lot of the rural farmers are not yet ready for interest investments. There is some capital that needs to be spent before we can get them to that stage. So I'd like to call upon corporate South Africa to approach us and support our projects. And in line with that, we will meet your reporting standards. We will definitely meet your requirements. But approach us. Give us the opportunity to run comprehensive rural development projects, from training to project funding to mentorship, to create commercial farmers in the rural areas.
Thank you, Suli. Okay, any other questions from the floor? There's another one.
Philip Graphic from Plaza Media. In the press release, you mentioned that there was WhatsApp groups and agri-social platforms created in order to convey weekly and monthly updates to the farmers. I would just like to know what has been the success rate of these platforms so far.
Okay, Johan, do you want to get that?
The easiest part was to set up the WhatsApp groups, of course, and language is definitely a problem. People learn better in their mother tongue, but I must say the level of English is very good, comprehensive, understandable. It is still something new for a group of farmers to be suddenly on a group. It's open, you can communicate. There's a little bit of lack due to, if I ask a personal question, then the whole community knows about it. So we try to motivate people to do that on a one-to-one basis, but it requires a lot of capital, it requires full-time personnel, and it requires research to make a marketing data and prices and things available on a daily basis. So it's in a growing phase, but there's definitely huge potential, and on a daily basis we can see farmers getting more and more confidence to leave voice messages or to announce something within their project for themselves that doesn't concern us, which they've never done before. So the technology plays definitely. If 80% of farmers are on WhatsApp, for example, that's one of the basic tools that definitely will be used to bring technology to the farmers. Adding on that WhatsApp videos, especially, I don't want to say TikTok videos, but small little videos on how to do things. Over a year, if you put 52 little videos once a month, there's a lot of information getting out there. So definitely that's the way to go. If that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, so it's used as a conduit for education, basically.
And I think, coming to William's point, what we've positioned the WhatsApp groups to do is serve as a virtual extension officer, if I may call it that. And not only that, from the research we found that farmers don't have access to current market prices, previous market prices, knowledge on outbreaks of disease, and a range of other topics. So even if they're not using their platform to communicate between themselves, Agri A along with us, we transfer valuable information for those farmers as a platform that they never have before. At the moment, there is room for opportunity to grow the purpose of the WhatsApp group, but it's just a step forward in terms of giving access to communication and relevant market information for now.
Okay, more questions? I'm going to take 3 more. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
If I could
We
elaborate
can ask
a little
each
more.
other questions as well.
Yeah, I just want to elaborate a little more on Dairy Maverick's question regarding the recording of traditional farming ways. We must understand that on the one side we're working with commercial agriculture, which is profit-driven, and then we sit with communal traditional farming, which is not necessarily profit-driven. And it's very difficult to match the two worlds because your adaptation rate from year to year is only about 14%. So if I've got a group of 10 farmers and I bring new technology in the first year, there will be 1 or 2 innovators that will accept. The other 8 will not accept because they still cling on what they've grown up. In the second year, about another 13%, 2 people will grow. And agriculture takes a year to complete the production season. So it's not an easy quick fix. There are certain things in the traditional farming that is acceptable because that's also part of nature, like burning the Eastern Cape before the summer grazing come, if you don't overburn. So that is adaptable, that one can. But if a traditional way, for example, is to take fresh cow dung and put it on an open wound and it will heal, it just creates more infection. In a traditional way, farmers will say it's a survival of the fittest. So if an animal is sick or is infected by worms or parasites, if nature lets him live, it's a good animal. If not, he can die. But if we look at 40% mortalities, whereas the cost of one animal could have been used to vaccinate or to give medicine to all the other animals, and we can bring that rate down, then we can start creating more income locally. So it's a more complex answer than just saying yes or no.
Okay, thanks for that. I'm going to take some last question. So everybody will be available to talk to you afterwards if you want to talk to them. Last question. Okay, let's go to closing remarks. There's a last question from Daily Maverick. Yes?
So you mentioned that this is a pilot project. What are, in terms of, I think you said now it's about 750 farmers that were trained and skilled. What does the future look like for this project in terms of growing those numbers, but also expanding? Are there plans to expand regionally and open those markets regionally as well, or will it continue to just stay within the borders of the country?
So our goal is the Agri SA Enterprises Rural Development Division is within the next 2 years, we want to reach at least 1,200 more farmers with training. And that can only be possible with the correct mix of funding, with the correct mix of training service providers, with the correct mix of market agri-businesses. So on a daily basis, my division reaches out to, like I said, stakeholders in government, the corporate sector for funding for these farmers, whether it be training projects, whether it be capacity building projects, whether it be capital intensive projects. So we're going to try as hard as possible to raise funds for these farmers. Like you said, this was a pilot project. We've managed to, like the techno guys will say, do a bug check, fix up all the bugs, make sure our logistics run smoothly, make sure our project plannings run smoothly. And now is more important than running the actual project is now we get a chance to review the results and see where we went wrong, because we are human beings at the end of the day. There might have been places where the project wasn't at its most optimal point. So we're going to try and fix those errors and improve on the next one.
Okay, thank you, Sudi. Okay, I'm going to close it now. Go to final remarks. Christo, Jaco.
Thanks, Uri. Just from my side, if we talk about development, we talk about the development chain. So there's various links in this chain. Training is just one of these links, and I think we need to explore more of the others, and that's what Enterprise is exactly busy with, exploring the other links in the chain to get farmers on the ground. So what we reach with training specifically is to create new farmers. We identify and create new farmers to get them on the land, optimize the utilization of the scarce resources, the land that we have in South Africa, and then empower people, empower them to look after themselves, but also look after their communities. I think what we must realize as well, this training project is a pilot project for Agri SA Enterprises, but there's various commodities and other organizations that's doing a lot of work already in terms of training. They've trained a lot of people already, people that's moved to the commercial side as well. But there's a lot of other things that we need to get in place. There's a lot of other links in this chain that we need to get in place, and we need government for that as well. We can do it as private sector, but we need government and associations like AgriSeta, like other development corporations to come in and help us to develop it further, to make those guys commercial, those who wants to be commercial, or to make them more effective on their farms. And I think, Omri, congratulations to you and you guys exploring the whole chain, not focusing just on the one link.
Thank you very much for being so clear, Jaco. We appreciate that. Okay, going on to Christy, your concluding remarks, Christy.
I think what is important is that Agri SA Enterprises, together with commodity organizations, together with other entities that are training, I think that cooperation is of critical importance. But more so, it's about ensuring a greater level of success, because farming is not easy. So, chasing numbers is not our game. I think what is important is that we really want to share the best practices and the success stories out there. And then last but not least, as I've said, we do have an agricultural agro-processing master plan. All of these things should be integrated, and we should have a more consolidated approach. I think one of our big challenges is that everyone is doing their own thing. Instead of how do we consolidate this, how do we consolidate funding, how do we have a more collaborative approach when it comes to training, how do we work together to unlock new markets, how do we deal with infrastructure challenges, etc. And I think a lot will depend on collaborative efforts between various industry players. And I think to a very large extent we will be able to turn the tide around.
Thank you, Christy. Dr. Innocent?
I think the professionalism with which Agri SA has worked on the project itself, Christo, we want to appreciate the President. In other commodity organizations that we partner with, we fight for our reports to come and send people there. In this case, we are invited that we are going to monitor and evaluate a project of this nature in this area. Are you able to join us? Please come, your reports are ready. We have sent the report, go through it. Have we achieved it in line with what you were expecting? So for that, I think Agri SA thumbs up. The next step on the project itself, which we are humbly requesting, is to make sure that the number that we have, indeed they are registered as cooperatives. William, the chairperson of the community that side. Amongst others would be for ourselves as AgriSeta to send our representative together with Agri SA to teach them on how they can access our grants fund, possibly in the next year after this process. We want to do a tracer study like what we have done. I don't want to sit here and tell you lies. So we did a tracer study the past 2 years of the organizations that we had funded for the past 5 years or so. And the report that came to check where they were at the time, where they are now. And when we checked the report itself, it was not sending a very good story. It's not a story that we are proud of. So we want in the project like this that we are able to go back and say, Christo and Agri SA, we are extremely proud of this project. You taught them all the basic skills, entrepreneur skills as they were presented here. 2 years down the line, they qualify to apply for the funding, their cooperative setup. This is where they are from where they were. Those are the things that we can be proud of. I'm speaking of this, but also other projects that we are funding now. Like every 3 years, we keep looking back and go and check the impact with which we are contributing to the communities. I think I've spoken with you. See, at the agricultural colleges, it's not nice when the students complete there, when they are done, because we teach them 3 things. We are supposed to contribute 3 things. Either 1, they find job at a private sector, number 2 at a public sector, number 3, entrepreneur. So when we go back to check those students in those agricultural colleges, there's basically nothing that they are doing the majority. So those are the things that behind the scenes we are trying to check whether the curriculum at those agricultural colleges could be changed at the TVET colleges and link it with the university as well. Because look at the University of Technology. A student goes there, study 3 years, and have a national diploma in agriculture. Goes for the 4th year at the same University of Technology and is registered for a BTech degree. Okay, on the same level. A student studies national diploma at agricultural college, completes it. When he's supposed to do a degree, instead of doing 4th year like at the University of Technology, a student starts from 0, like a person who has completed grade 12 at a university. Those are the things that behind the scenes you can't see our work, but as and when it comes out a year later or 15 months later, you are going to be able to see that. Because behind the scenes we are trying to engage the minister. That Honorable Minister, is it possible for AgriSeta to be the coordinator of this program? We engage until a particular solution is found, because the board is not happy. The board tells me, CEO, how come so many students who pass from agricultural colleges are not working? So concluding on my remarks here, what we have done, we have requested the names of the students who have completed for the past 5 years in each and every agricultural college, university, or a TVET college. Put them together, go to the minister and say, Honorable Minister, we have spoken with our commodity organizations, our farmers. They are ready that we can place them. All we need is stipends of a period of 18 months that we are able to give. So that after that 18 months, if we place 5,000 students, we are able to go back and track. Some would be absorbed, how many of them? Some would have started entrepreneur, how many would have started? And those that would be either absorbed at a private or public institution. So it's a study that is focused instead of just guessing. So the media house that is here, we realize that we have not been communicating with you enough to engage on our program. And you are able to critique what we are doing. And with that, I'm sure the intention, even when you criticize us, is for us to improve. So there are areas where we are also not doing the best that we could ever do. So we would accept such. It's still work in progress. And thank you for having us here.
Thank you, Dr. Innocent. Suleiman, last words from you, just these reports, I mean.
Okay. So, I don't have much more to say. And I'd also like to officially hand over the closeout reports to Dr. Innocent and the AgriSeta team. In this reports compiled in each of these, so our mission was set out to train 720 farmers. And for me, it was quite a big task, being it my first large-scale project, being the project leader on my first large-scale project. So myself with the I3A team developed a very nice reporting system. Each of the 720 farmers were broken up into groups of 20 based on commodity types of farmers, area, and a range of other criteria. And based on that, we've developed, for each group of 20, we've developed a research report which has a lot of data on the farmers, on their areas, their current income levels. And if we flip to the back here, we have, okay, I can't find the exact page now, we have a CIPC certificate for each registered company. And if there were cooperatives in that area, we've attached the cooperative certificate as well in the area. So this is the CIPC certificate. Some groups opted to split into 2 groups to create separate companies. Nevertheless, we've got them formally registered. And I think the next steps would be is to help them with SARS accreditation, opening up bank accounts for the accredited entity, but obviously that's a topic for another day. So thank you very much for the opportunity, Yaku, Christu, Dr. Innocent. It's really a personal milestone for myself as well, so thank you all.
Yeah, guys, just before I close, just some final remarks from my side. I think Yaku explained it very well. Within our business, we cover the value chain. So literally funding, training development, rural development, innovation, technology, all of that. I think this is also a bit of a call on the development corporations in South Africa and the banks to, come to the party. I think, Dr. Innocent, we actually have a meeting this afternoon about the agri colleges. It was flagged by the provincial chamber to us. So we also want to share some of our solutions with you. We actually have our first meeting today, so happy to share that with you. Colleagues, Nelson Mandela said, it always seems impossible until it is done. And that is where we are. We are at a point in South Africa where we talk is cheap, It's like everybody's sitting in a little bus waiting to go to Cape Town, but there's no fuel in the bus. So the bus can't leave. It's time that we put fuel in the bus and that we get solutions that work. With that, I want to close off the meeting. I want to thank everybody for coming. The delegates will be available afterwards for interviews. Please talk to them. The AgriSeta has obviously a lot more to share with you. And Agri SA and ourselves would be happy to field any questions. Thank you for coming. Let's give a hand of applause for everybody here.
Thank you very much, Omri. To close off, I just want to thank the panel again for attending. Finally, I want to thank Mr. Suleiman Patel, who spearheaded this initiative. Churchill would say someone is modest with a lot to be modest about, but Mr. Patel is steadfast with important results motivating him to be steadfast. He has shown strong guidance and focus throughout this project that was vital to the success of this project. Thank you, Suli, and I think everyone agrees with me that this is only the start of a more remarkable success story. Thank you everyone for attending, and lunch is ready to be served.